Good evening. I'm your host, Sarah, and we have a very special guest today, Laura, who's going to be talking about her son's experience with cannabis, her son has epilepsy. This week's show is on child epilepsy, really. I really want to get the different aspects of how cannabis as a medicine is so great and why it should be made available to everybody who needs it, including, and especially our children. The epilepsy is a particularly dreadful disease which has no known cure. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a background on epilepsy. In the UK, there's an estimated 60,000 children under the age of 18 who have epilepsy, and that's a high number. It's a neurological condition which affects the child's nervous system and brain. Seizures start in the brain. The brain is made up of millions of nerve cells that use electric signals to control the body's functions, senses and thoughts. If these signals are disrupted in any way, then the person may have an epileptic seizure, which is basically a fit or an attack. And what type of seizure this is depends on the part of the brain which is affected. So that's how you tell what sort of type of seizure it is. There are two main types: focal seizures, sometimes called partial seizures, and generalized seizures, affect both sides of the brain. Adults and children have the same types of seizures. Some more common in children, like absent seizures, and an absent seizure is just like when a child looks like they're daydreaming, or they look like they're not paying attention, but actually they're having a seizure. There's different types of seizures. There's jerking of the body, convulsions. There's repetitive movements. There's sensations and strange tastes in the mouth. Arousal sensations and strange tastes in the mouth. Strange smells or raising in feelings in the stomach. Some children are aware, and some when their seizures are happening, and there's some seizures where there's no memory of the seizures at all. Some seizures actually happen when the children are asleep, and these are called nocturnal seizures, and they leave the child feeling very tired and confused the next day. So, that'd be a very harsh, very hard night for any child to have to go through, having seizures. And they wake up confused and not sure what's been going on with them, really, and just very tired. So why are children having these seizures then? Well, there's two different types, really, why they start in the first place. One of them is a brain injury, which is a severe brain injuries, difficulties at birth, I suppose not, umbilical cord being wrapped around the neck and not having oxygen for some reason, or other things like that. And infections that children might have, like meningitis can cause damage to the brain. And when this occurs, it can also cause seizures. And these are known as symptomatic epilepsy. Others are genetic causes, maybe from both one or both parents, and that's called idiopathic epilepsy. And we have what's called a seizure threshold. Everybody has a seizure threshold, and sometimes a low seizure threshold can cause children to have epilepsy, but not always, because some children have a low threshold and they don't actually have any seizures. So what do they do? So normally in the countries like the UK and in the States, what normally happens is that the child will be given, or an adult would be given, pharmaceutical drugs, and some of these are the brand names. Carbogin, I'm never going to be able to pronounce these very well, so you'll have to bear with me. I can actually, if you are interested in any of these, they're easy enough to Google, but you've got Keppra, which is Keppra, and most common possible side effects include the following: skin rash, anorexia, weight changes, abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, drowsiness, unsteadiness, dizziness, headaches, tremor, amnesia, aggression, agitation, depression, anxiety, and double or blurred vision. These are just they're the most common possible side effects. Weight changes, and that's just one drug. I'll read out a few more. And then we've got Epival. I can pronounce that one. I'll just pick the ones I can pronounce best. That'll be the one, isn't it? And then the most common side effects for these ones include skin rash again, hair loss, nausea, stomach upset, diarrhea, weight gain due to increased appetite, hyperactivity and behavioural problems, has been associated with polycystic ovaries and menstrual problems. So as you can see, there's quite a few side effects to these drugs, and a lot of not all children will not all children will react very well with these. Some children with the pharmaceutical medicines that are available, their seizures will stop once the right dosing is put into place. And some of the side effects will be taken away once the body gets used to the fact that it's on the drugs, and also when the dosing is adjusted. And others it doesn't work for. And some people say that their children are like they're not there all the time as well when they're on these pharmaceutical drugs, and the interaction is really bad. But that also could be because of the severity of the epilepsy, because there's different severities and there's different amounts of fits and episodes that children will actually have. So other treatments which are available on the NHS or the health service in America would be a ketotic diet. So that's adjusting the diet, and this can reduce the number of seizures and also the severity of the seizures. And another thing that they use, which is very drastic, is surgery, and this involves removal or separating of part of the brain, and which stops or reduces the number of seizures. And as you can imagine, that is pretty drastic, isn't it? Surgery is very high risk anyway for anybody to go through. For a child that's not very well to have to go through a surgery to have part of their brain removed in the hope that it's going to either reduce the seizures or reduce the severity is pretty harsh, really, isn't it, for any child to have to go through, especially as these children can be so young, and it's really horrendous for any family to have to go through them. And when you're looking at the medicine to be prescribed to any patient, and to me, especially for a child, well, not even though it's not really especially for a child, but to see a little child suffering needlessly is really not very nice place to be, And this epilepsy is horrendous. It's so destructive to so many children's lives. Some of the triggers that you have for epilepsy are stress, excitement, boredom, missed medication, lack of sleep. And there's some that will too much excitement going on. Like I said, too much excitement, lights flashing, strobe lights can cause epilepsy. So you can imagine how much this limits a child's life. We all love to see a child getting excited and to see a child happy, go to the fun fair and get all excited about going on a ride. And, for a child to miss out on that throughout their childhood due to the fact that they're going to have a seizure, it is really, it's really hard work to watch. So the fact that there is, and the medicines that are available on the national health or in the UK and in countries like America are very limited due to the fact of their side effects, and finding the right dosage. And some of these side effects can be quite horrendous, and children can actually die during seizures as well. These seizures can be so full on and cause a hell of a lot more damage within the brain. So really, when you're looking at a medication, you look at which one will do the best by that child or by that person while causing the least side effects. And this one that seems to be pushing forward very well in this field, and it's not for everybody, again, not every child that has epilepsy and that uses this drug, or this medicine, should I say, is going to get better. But the best one with the least side effects is probably cannabis. You know, cannabis as a medicine, again, comes forward with, because the side effects are practically non-existent. There is a little bit of fear around whether cannabis can harm a child's brain developing, but if you put it in comparison to the damage that these fits can be causing for a child, well, then there's no comparison really. And one of the most famous cases that we all know of, that most people have heard of, is Charlotte. Young Charlotte was 5 years old, and she lived, I can't remember what state she lived in, but she lived in another state, not Colorado or California, like Laura or Terry. And they lived in a state where it wasn't legal, as far as I remember. And she was 5 years old, and she was having a fit round about every 20 to 25 minutes. So you can imagine this. She was born a perfectly healthy young child, and she had a twin sister, and her twin sister carried on developing normally, and so did she. She kept up with her sister until she was about 3, I think, or 4, and she started having severe divergence. There we go. My Diveret's epilepsia is my pronunciation again. I do apologise. It's not always the best, but there we go. Yeah, and she was having like a fit every 15 to 25 minutes, and these fits can last anything within 15 to 25 minutes. So her whole life was basically a fit. The doctors told her that she wasn't responding to any of the drugs that she was being given. They were like, she just wasn't there. They lost Charlotte. They didn't have Charlotte anymore. They had a twin sister, and she was growing and developing, but she was also missing out on a lot of things because so much time and attention had to be put into Charlotte. So this doesn't just affect the one child and the parents. It also affects any siblings within the family as well, and it can be very difficult for them, especially when they're young, you know, to have a proper understanding of what's actually going on, and plus the fear of what's happening to their sister or their brother, watching them having fits and just slipping further and further away into their own world, into a world that we could never imagine or be in. So really, yes, so Charlotte was really how come this has really hit the headlines in America and around the world, you know, because Charlotte was, like I was saying, having about 400 fits a week. And so her parents heard something. They was desperate. They'd signed a document to say if Charlotte did slip into a coma that they wouldn't resuscitate her anymore, due to the fact that they didn't want their daughter to suffer anymore. They thought there was no hope, and that there was nothing that could be done for their beautiful daughter, who they'd watched deteriorate from a young, beautiful child capable of just as much as as a twin sister to just a child that just fitted all the time. So, you know, they thought that she was even going to die. They really thought that they'd lost Charlotte. And so they was looking round to see if they could find anything alternative, see if they could find some hope somewhere. And they read about cannabis, and so they decided to track down some cannabis. And they came across the 5 brothers from Colorado, who were part of who've got a non-profit organisation called Realm of Caring, and they were growing a low THC strain and high CBD strain, and they called it the hippies. The hippies disappointment because it's a low THC strain, which is the psychoactive part of the plant, and a high CBD. That means that people don't get stoned, and so that's why they called it the hippies disappointment. And Charlotte is, like I said, she's went from having one fit every 20 to 25 minutes. To having, after her first administration, she went straight from 0 to 1 per week. That was after one administration of cannabis oil. And they use it as an oil when you're using it for children who are epileptic. And so basically, yeah, so she's gone from 400 a week to 0 to 1 per week. This child is now alive. She's now awake. She's now actually getting up, and she's doing ballet, and she's doing all sorts. She's playing. She's intrigued with the world. She's exploring. She's learning things for the first time. She's absolutely amazing time she's having. She's a really happy child, and her development and improvement is just getting better and better and better. Um, so yeah, what I would like to do now is introduce Laura. She's also in the States and in Colorado. Hello, Laura.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, and thank you so much for coming on, Laura. Laura's just an ordinary woman who's had to go and find find something to help her son. You know, so you've done a great job, Laura. So could you tell us a little bit about your son, Lavi, please?
Sure. Lavari just was developing normally and everything up until last September when he was 4. He just had a grand mal seizure or a tonic-clonic seizure out of nowhere. And so we took him to see a neurologist, and he had to have a video EEG where they put electrodes on your head and they monitor your brain waves. And so we got that done, and he was having abnormal spikes or abnormal activity in his brain, which can cause you to have seizures. So he was put on Keppra, which you had mentioned, a low dose of that to prevent him from having any other seizures. And so he had, after starting Keppra, he was fine for 45 days, and then he had another seizure, another grand mal seizure, which is your full body is convulsing, your eyes are rolling back in your head, you're foaming at the mouth, like choking. It's extremely scary, and super scary for you to have to see your little 4-year-old, going through that, and it's exhausting on the body too. It's very painful. Then his neurologist started just putting him on trying tons of different AEDs or seizure medications, and it's just spiraled out of control from there. We've never had any seizure control. He's had over 15,000 seizures in less than a year, and just basically every couple of weeks he's airlifted to a children's hospital and inpatient for 2 weeks, just having anywhere from, I think the most he had in a day was like 35 grand mal seizures. At one point, one of the medications he was on, which is called Depakote, caused him to have about 3,000 atonic or drop seizures, where you just like fall, like there's no warning or anything. You just fall over, or your head falls over, or it's just very scary. So I've tried he's been on probably like 12 different seizure medications. I've taken him to chiropractors and naturopaths, and he's on a totally organic diet, no dyes, no sugars, no preservatives, all whole foods, no corn, no gluten, no rice, no wheat. Like, I've tried basically everything I can think of. And he has irretractable cryptogenic epilepsy, which is basically no cause. And it's very hard to treat with seizure medications. He's done genetic testing. Everything's come out normal. So, it's pretty hard to figure out, okay, what's going on when you have no reason. He didn't have a brain injury. His birth was fine. His development was fine. All those things. So.
Hello, you still there? We seem to have lost you. We seem to have lost Laura for some reason, which is a shame because it was very interesting. We're just going to try and get Laura back. Just going to re-ring her because obviously we want to hear more about her story and what her son's been through, Lavara. And not knowing what's causing these seizures is really horrible for the parents as well. It's up bringing all sorts of thoughts into people's minds for them. Like, is there something else I can do? Desperate road these people are on. Desperately trying to find an answer to their children's problems that they're having. And you can hear from Laura's experience that these seizures are very painful as well. Hello, Laura. We lost you for a little while there, darling. Can you hear me all right?
Sorry about that. I think I lost you guys for a second there.
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
That's brilliant. Can you remember where you were?
Yeah, I was just saying the seizure medication that he's been on, like just some of the side effects you mentioned. I mean, the side effects are horrendous. I mean, it's especially for a child. It's leaves your kid like basically to a slave to a medication because your child it impairs your cognitive development. Like you said, it causes aggression, it causes hallucinations. Basically it just make your child not your child. I mean, there's been so many times where he's had like what they call a baby dose, which a dose that they would actually give to a baby, and he's had a drug overdose where he's falling all over, drooling, can't speak. It's just crazy. So I mean, it's just been a horrible experience. So finally, after his last hospital stay, which was about 2 months ago, we just drove to Colorado in hopes to try the cannabis oil. And, he's been doing great on it. I mean, he's had some seizures, of course. We've actually, been able to take his Keppra down 1,000 milligrams already. So he's on 2 seizure medications presently. He's on Keppra, and he is also on a drug called Onfi, which is a benzodiazepine. And those things, those aren't good medications. They're not something you really want your child on, but unfortunately, those are some of the medications that doctors do prescribe, and they can help with seizures. However, they do impair cognitive development, and your child does receive a psychoactive effect from it or a high. So, it's hard to watch your child on the medication. And for him, every time he's been on medications, we've had adverse effects. We've never had any type of seizure control. He just continued to have seizures, regardless of the medications. So, right when we got here, he's been on the oil around 2 months. When we first got here, he had 23 days seizure free, which we've never had on any type of seizure medications, which was fabulous. And then he went through a little period of seizures, and then we took down his medication, like I said, by 1,000 milligrams, and then he went another 21 days seizure free, which was great. And then he had a little bout of seizures, and then we actually utilized THC, straight THC, but just a little tad amount of it as a rescue medication. Usually rescue medications are all in the benzodiazepine family. So they're all like lorazepam, diazepam, things like that. But those things never had worked for my son. If I were to administer a rescue medication, he would usually have a tonic-clonic or grand mal seizure basically like every hour. And then we'd have to be inpatient because it'd be nonstop seizure activities. This last time was actually the first time since we've ever had a bout of seizures or a cluster where you kind of have a lot of seizures and you kind of can't stop them, or they're just going on for several days or whatever. So the THC broke the cycle, and we didn't have to be, admitted to the hospital, which was the first time ever. And he came out of the seizure pattern or cluster and then was fine. And now he's going on another 2 weeks having no seizures. And so that's just like a miracle for us. I mean, he's actually able to do things like have life. This whole year, we basically lived in a hospital. Every single holiday, we were in the hospital. All my kids' birthdays, we were in the hospital. Lavari's 5th birthday, we were in the hospital. It was horrible. So Labor Day was the first holiday since last Labor Day that we weren't in the hospital, and that we were able to do something. We went on a fishing trip. So it's fabulous. It's a miracle. There's so many children out here getting help, and he's getting help, and we're so happy. And we're using a high CBD, low THC strain as well, and it's 22-1. So your child isn't receiving that psychoactive effect or high, and I think that's where like people that are against it, or the public, or things like that, is that they don't understand. They're thinking, marijuana, which is, when people say marijuana oil or marijuana medicine, it's like maybe we should come away from that phrase, because then I think everybody's brain automatically thinks, like smoking marijuana, which would, that's not like it at all. None of the children are smoking anything. They're getting administered by an oil, like you said. And I mean, the amount that my son takes is literally, he takes it 3 times a day, and it's about the size of a pencil eraser. And so So it's so small, but it's so effective. It's so amazing. Thinking about all the medications I've had to put in his body, the pharmaceuticals, this is such a small thing, and it's so effective. And the qualities in it, it serves as a neuroprotectant. It's antimicrobial. It's anti-inflammatory. It's just so amazing. And I know what doctors say sometimes is like, oh, we don't have the research, but it's miraculous what we've been seeing from so many families. I follow a lot of kiddos that use it, and I'm seeing it from my own son, and I don't see any negative side effects. And I've lived a year of basically hell being on pharmaceuticals, and seeing all the side effects, seeing my son bite and punch and kick people and scream, and going through withdrawals from medications, and not being able to talk, and not being able to go to the bathroom, and not being able to play, and crying. And you see all of that, like, that is horrible. And that nobody's having those side effects from using the cannabis oil. So it's so amazing, and it's so effective, and it can help so many children. I think we really gotta try and push for this to, become legal everywhere, because families shouldn't have to, move and uproot their lives so that they can, help their child,
Terry had a question for you, though, Laura. Did you still want to ask a question, Terry? I've seen you put your wands in there.
Yeah, I did. I did put my wands in there. I have a question about when it comes to tweaking the medication to see what works and doesn't work, because it does seem like there's a trial and error with cannabis as well as with the pharmaceutical drugs as well. Is there someone in your area in Colorado that is helping you? Is there a group that you work with, or any person that kind of is sort of the doctor per se?
Yeah, well, it's Colorado seems to be the place to be, because it seems like there's so much knowledge, and you do have to acquire a card. It's called a red card to use the THC. So then when you go, there'll be two doctors that can kind of give you dosing information, and then there'll be the dispensary, which the dispensary doesn't. They do not give you medical advice, but they will give you like a recommended dose. I actually didn't use either of the recommendations. I just started off probably like a third of what they recommended, just because I have a very sensitive son, and he is taking a drug called Onfi, which can interact with CBD. So I started off at an extremely low dose, and then I spoke with somebody at the dispensary, and then I kind of told them my situation, and they kind of gave me a recommended dose, which is still smaller than the recommended dose for his weight. And then there's several sites that we go on, and we just talk to other families, and it's kind of nice just to have that whole cluster of people to help you, because the doctors can recommend this, and the dispensary can recommend that, and they're basically going off what's worked for other children or whatever. And then you can go with the families and then just see what their journey's been about. And then it's kind of just touch and go. And it's better to start off small, and then you can increase from there based on, if you're having adverse effects, or if you're not seeing the effects you want, then you can go up, because it's a lot easier to start small and move up than start too big, because if you start at too high of a dose, you can actually increase seizures, is what I've heard from other people. So we have tons of room to play around. My son presently takes 0.17 milliliters three times a day, and his recommended dose, I believe, is 0.28 3 times a day. So he's doing fabulous just on that small amount even. So I definitely have a lot of room to move up if I have to.
Are there so there are online groups or support groups that people can get involved with?
Oh yeah, definitely. I know we particularly use a CBD called Haley's Hope, and that's from it's from Flowering Hope Foundation. And so if you use their product, they will get you in touch with a group, and it's strictly for the people that are using that product, the families. So you can go into that group, and then you can just talk to tons of families, and everybody will give you their, their what they're using, what effects they're having. You can see like, okay, maybe their child kind of matches my child's seizure type or their journey, or they'll even let you know like how they weaned medication. And of course, nobody recommends weaning medication without a doctor's approval, but you can kind of do what you see fit for your child. But then it's nice to just touch base with a lot of different families that are using the same product as you, see what they're doing, and then you kind of just go on your own and just play. It's kind of like play it by ear for your child. You know your child the best, even better than a doctor, because the parents are the ones who's with their child 24/7. So, but yeah, it's definitely, and I think there's like some other CBD groups out there. So there's definitely a lot of groups on the internet that you can connect with to see everybody's journey, and just, support each other and let each other know what's working, what you're using, or whatever else. So that's been a big help too.
I've heard of Haley's Hope before, and I also understand that there's a CBD oil that you can get that has, I guess, no THC in it, that people are administering for epilepsy as well. Is that connected to Haley's Hope, or is that a different program?
Well, Haley's Hope is I think the highest they have is 23-1. So it's basically no THC, or just a really small amount that actually so the amount is so small that it's, I guess, you might possibly be able to use it anywhere, because it's just the way the ratio is or whatever. But and then I know some people add a little more THC, and depending on like what their effects are. So I don't know that they have one with nothing. I think the highest they have is the 23-1, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But that, I guess, seems to be the most effective and best place to start, that they found have been like really effective for everybody. So I guess that's kind of like where the recommended dose is, to just try that and see what happens, and then you can add more THC in if needed. But
can you?
It seems to be helping so many kids.
If you don't live in a medical marijuana state, can you order that online? That particular oil?
I believe that they it's just been approved to be able to ship it anywhere in the United States, I believe. So you can order the Haley's Hope online and have it shipped to any state, I believe, because it's basically CBD. So that's what I'm almost positive about. But again, you could check their website, and they're so helpful. So they can answer they're always available to answer questions and things like that.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions. That's basically all I have for right now. So I don't know if Sarah wants to come back in here, but I do wish you the best. And yeah, you're quite it's moms like you that are the pioneers in educating the rest of everybody else. So
yeah, really, well, thank you. I definitely, I know a lot of people. We actually came from Wisconsin, so we came 1,200 miles just to try this, and we just left in a day. Like, we left a day after a hospital visit because I was that scared with just how my son's care had gone and just how many seizures he was having, and so rapidly, and just no success with pharmaceuticals. But I definitely, I talk to everybody that I can about it, because I want people to know that, if anybody is against it, I want to know why you're against it. And then maybe after hearing my story and hearing what I have, the knowledge I have about it, and how, you're not getting high. And I think that's where everybody who's against it is really like misinformed about it. And that's what they think. And so I definitely tell people, about our journey and, the knowledge I've acquired from it, and have them, refer them to some sites and check it out, because it's important for everybody to realize that there is help out there for all these children, or even adults, or people with cancer, or people with Crohn's, or it's helping so many people. And if pharmaceuticals can't help you, and the body's not made for those, we should reach out to something a little more natural that it can help people in a day, in a week, in a month, in 2 months, because these things are so debilitating and And you know, if you've gone through the AEDs or you can't go through the seizure, you know, you've gone through the surgeries and everything else, and your child is just non-functionable. I mean, it's not what a child's life should be. That's not what anybody's life should be. And there's help out there, and it should be available to everybody. It shouldn't be so scarce and illegal when it can you know, be so miraculous. It really can. And it's just what I'm always reaching out to other families and telling them about our story, or reaching out to other families and listening to their story, because I lived this nightmare, and, you know, I'm seeing it just turn our life around in such a short amount of time that I'm so excited for the future, because I think, you know, my son can actually have a life and maybe be seizure free. And if not seizure free, cut the seizures down, you know, 90%. So I've seen it already in this short amount of time. So.
Sounds like he's been doing excellent though on his treatment of CBD and THC. So, yeah, CBD is not illegal in England, but please be very careful if you do go and get some and administer it to your child, who you tell, because there have been cases of children nearly being removed from families and by hospitals, by doctors, and being signed over to social services through parents administrating CBD-only oils to their child who do suffer from epilepsy. So please be aware that there are risks, because due to the stigma that it still is associated with cannabis, that it is a drug of abuse rather than the wonderful medicine that it actually is. And the definition of a medicine is to improve the quality of one's life while none of the side effects are making it more detrimental than what it was. Obviously, that's not the exact words, but it's something along the lines of that. But what I'm actually interested as well is, you were saying, Laura, that you use THC as a rescue remedy. Is that?
Yeah. Actually, it was pretty amazing too. You just have to use a small amount, but we actually utilized. It was in the form of an inhaler, so it's just a 1 squirt mist, and went through a chamber and went over my child's nose and mouth, and it instantly stopped a grand mal seizure. It was like crazy amazing how effective it was, and I believe that dose is actually 10 milligrams of THC, but it goes into a mist. So, and that's not something that you want to administer all the time or as a preventative. That is like, I think it can be used about 2 times a day. I used it 3 times in a matter of a couple days, but it instantly stopped a grand mal seizure, and no rescue medication that I've ever given my son. And most of the time I've tried a nasal Versad and a rectal diazepam, and those are both benzos, and they have never stopped a seizure for my child. And this just little mist of THC instantly, like in a second, stopped him from having a grand mal seizure. And then I believe that little dose there in the matter of days as well helped break the cluster along with the CBD. So it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I have heard THC does work really well with epilepsy as well, and you know, obviously as a parent, these parents go more towards the CBD. CBD. So why does it work? Okay, CBD is a brilliant anti-inflammatory, and it's also an amazing neuroprotective. And Laura did touch on this. So they're not 100% sure about CBD and how it works, but they are actually starting trials in Colorado and around there very soon, from what I can gather. I just had a Skype call then, so I had to put it off. But yeah, so because it's an anti-inflammatory, it stops the brain from inflaming and becoming inflamed, and which helps dramatically, really, with seizures. And it interacts with the receptors within the brain, and therefore decreasing the seizure activity. And you know, that's amazing in itself. If it just did that in itself, we would be amazed, you know. But it doesn't just do that, because this is the cannabis plant, and as we know, it has got many medical properties, many factors that make it so amazing as a medicine, really, you know. So it's not only does it act as an anti-inflammatory, it also repairs the brain function. So this is why a child like Charlotte or Lavari will actually improve as the time goes by. It improves brain function, progresses motor and social skills, and they're all getting better all the time and developing all the time. The cannabis is actually repairing as well the damage which has been done by the seizures. So, it's absolutely amazing. So a child that could barely do anything is then all of a sudden learning again and moving forward again and progressing again and becoming interested in everything around them again and, being able to walk properly again and, like we were saying about Charlotte doing ballet now and dancing, before she was just on a sofa or strapped down. So, just because she was in such a bad way. And, like I said, there's 60,000 children in the UK that are being denied this chance. And like I said, it doesn't work for every child. Everybody's different, You can't say a particular strain is going to work for a particular illness. It all depends on the person. And science is proving this time and time again, especially the work that they're doing over in Madrid. Because a lot of people say to me all the time, I need a one-to-one strain for my illness. I need this for my illness. When actually the science is showing that each and every single one of us is an individual and will react better to different things. A lot of them, so you have to be aware. The world of the cannabis, even though it's one of the longest medicines known to man, the first recorded use was in 2900 BC in China. We are still learning a lot about cannabis at this stage, so it's always great to do a show and to share the knowledge, and that's why shows like this are so important. There could be somebody today with a child listening to this, and they could be going out and ordering their CBD paste today, and their child could be seizure-free by next week. And to know that, if that happens, and I ever found out, that would just make all my work worthwhile. It really would, because it's horrendous. And like you can hear from Laura, every single one of her children's birthdays was almost spent in hospital. It's not just affecting the one child; it affects the whole family. So, does anyone want to say anything else before I finish up the show?
I just wanted to thank you for having me on. And I appreciate your radio station, because every time I hear a new child, or I hear a child's story and I see what they've been through, or I see a pharmaceutical that they're going on, I cringe, because I just know, I've lived it and I know, and I'm just here, and I definitely reach out to people all the time, because I think every child should have a chance to try this, because like you said, it can actually heal your body, and seizure medication or pharmaceuticals will never be able to heal the damage. They might be able to put a Band-Aid on what's going on, or some, if you're lucky, it might help you be able to stop your seizures, but it doesn't seem to be able to help the majority. And this can definitely help everybody. It can, like you said, heal the body. It can heal damage caused by seizures. And you just have that great shot that you are going to, if it doesn't make you seizure free, it's definitely going to help you have less seizures, and it's going to give you a better quality of life. And, I've seen it with hundreds of kids already, and I'm living it. So I'm really hopeful that all the states can, and where you guys live can legalize it, and just have all these families and all these kiddos have a chance to be a kid and to live again, and not be a slave to, this horrible disease. So I appreciate you letting me share my story.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, because it's a very personal one, and we really do appreciate it, and it's very brave of you to come on and share it. And it's like you say, even if cannabis doesn't stop the seizures for all the children, it will help with those other things that I was talking about, the motor neuron. It will help with the development, and it will help with lots of things like that.
You definitely have to be an advocate for your child. And when I first went into this journey, I didn't know anything about epilepsy, or, I was told the medications have no side effects, and going on your journey, you will find that absolutely not true. Every medication has a horrible side effect. You just have to see how it's going to affect your child and then play it out. So yeah, if you have the chance sooner or later to try this, you will thank yourself in the end, and you will be able to not have to go through the horrific journey that a lot of parents had to go through before we could get to this point. So
yeah, and then the cannabis will have a lot less work to do as well. You know, it is a neuron protector. That's why it would help every child with epilepsy. But, you know, damage does occur during these fits. So the sooner you get on it, the better. You know, and same with any other disease like cancer, Crohn. Stop putting your own health off or your child's health off over fear. You know, take that step forward. There's a lot of support out there for you. There's a lot of groups, you know, and there's a lot of information. So just knowing where to look. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming on, especially Laura, and sharing your story. And we'll be back next week. We've got some great guests lined up, so see you later.